Well, welcome to the Dream Labs. Dr. Contrast Live here. I just thought I'd pick up the stream here today and continue on with this lesson plan, or this little exercise we've been going through on architecture, the Rapid Sketch Conceptual Studies for Architectural Design, and just looking at sketch renderings. And I just want a real brief recap before we go into the final variation and theme today. And that is going back and review a little bit from the ballpoint pen sketches we did on day one. Hey, how you doing there, Chip? Good to have you on board, Chief. Did you have a good day? So far, so good? And again, just a bit of a review here, Chip, looking at some of the pencil sketches we did yesterday from the original. Let's go back to Tuesday. We started a little architectural concept study, and picking a theme, doing a series of variations. And yesterday we picked the theme and began to just tune into this little variation on theme and some ideation materials on this architectural structure. And I think the one I picked was a little bit very interesting form. Had a lot of lean back to it, very ribbon-like and organic, but at the same time very sheer in some areas. So interesting little concept there to deal with. And then the entryway had a little bit of a blister or a dome over the top of it. So I thought that was a good starting point to work with. So I'm going to review some of the sketches here. And from this series today, or yesterday, I went ahead and looked at another final variation theme to kind of wrap it up here today. So this is the first page we did, just going through some variations on the original ballpoint pen sketch that we selected. And they began to look like that. So there was phase one. Then we went to another pattern when we kind of turned around a little bit, just a little bit tighter on the rear three-quarter shot at it. Give it more drama. It was interesting how that form just kind of undulated through, and that little blister comes into this very long, almost aluminum or anodized aluminum flying wing that comes off of that entry area. Interesting operation here. So that was a little bit of a variation and theme, add a little bit of the silo, dropped it down a little bit. Behind this complex, we'll show you in a minute what is really taking place with this form. And then again, we shifted around again and went from the other end, going for example, from left side to right side. But again, noticing truncating, a little bit more conical in the actual tower itself, that it really belongs as part of the process. These are things we're studying and going through the process of putting these sketches together. Again, they're very quick. There's nothing pretty about them. They're just very lucid sketches, primarily from yesterday's stream. Variations on the theme. We got the set down on Tuesday, looked at a series of ballpoints, and yesterday we went and refined some of those sketches, went a little bit more elaborate with some a little bit of color and some Prismacolor pencil added, and some ballpoint pen work. And then this is the second plate we did. And then the third one we did was just kind of wrap it all up and say, what if we actually changed, just kind of swung it over a little bit and push it more to the right-hand side, and really kind of add a little flying wing on top and put a little surface behind it, and then really drop that shape behind it. This form comes right through. Hey, how you doing there, Dr. Khan? Hey, Shadow. Now 8 months and going strong. Can you believe it? At tier 1, they're described for 8 months. Wow, that's really interesting. Hey, thanks, Shadow. How are you? Good to have you on board there, Doctor. Long time no see. Looking forward to having us get together and really crank on some things on your program and my program. So very good. But this is the final sketch. That's good. I'm really pleased to hear that, Shadow. Thank you for joining in. I'll make this real brief here. But this is the final pencil sketch not the final, but the last variation of the theme we worked with from Tuesday's stream about just looking for the search and picking a selection and going through a variation of themes here. I think there's a lot of real intrigue in this building. It has a lot of sculptural feel to it. It's very almost aircraft-like. It's very wing-related, and a bit of a challenge because the whole thing leans back, and how you illustrate that well and make it still function and float off the ground surface and so forth. There's a very little minimal ground surface. The whole thing begins to float. If we look at this on this elevation, for example, looking to the north or to the west in this case, that thing would probably be off the ground plane about maybe 30 degrees. That's a pretty severe slope, but nonetheless, it can function and work. But things they're doing now in architecture, it's absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. So here we are. That was the second one we did, and we wrapped it up with this guy. But then when I finished this one, I thought, that's a very elegant looking form. Scale looks good. The surfaces started to come together nicely, but there was something missing. So we're going to work on today is this. I went ahead and did this. We're going to look at this guy from this perspective. All of a sudden, I just shifted over and said, you know what? We are really robbing ourselves. Pardon me as I attach this guy. We're robbing ourselves of what the form looks like down here. We had a pretty good character of it, and what the resemblance is going to be, but we didn't really get to see the overall site plan. So I decided to take the same basic theme, not so much like this, but that same basic format, and get up over the top of it, and then come in from the right-hand side from my station point, and really look at this form from overhead and see what happens with this thing in terms, all of a sudden, it shows more of the guts behind the scene. This thing still floats. We've added another tier up on top, another buttress on top of that surface that leans back a little bit, so it gives more interest. Added a second butterfly back in through here. And then this conical shape, this tower still functions, but off of that we come down to the ground like a little park setting in here. And then last but not least, a really cool thing about this is off of this main entryway, there's the actual concourse of the building that wraps up around and comes right up behind the building here. So I took a little more time to think through the process of what we're trying to sell here in terms of architectural concept work. And as you brought up, Shadow, a couple of sessions ago, Monday, I think you brought in a very good Tuesday, a really good point about this whole process. It all comes down to understanding perspective, how to cheat a certain surface and a shape. That doesn't mean you violate it, but you learn how to cheat it. And all of a sudden, when you begin to move through that, this is a good example of that, how I really cheated some of the shapes to make it function. There's not a lot of solidity there, but it begins to settle itself well. And the point we made in your comment was really interesting on Tuesday. Your question was, does interior space do the same thing? Absolutely. I mean, that might be the second series we do here. It's like a little study on interior space design. It all comes down to perspective. And I go back to those terms. I've said it a million times, so forgive me for being redundant, but I've said it over and over again. The real secret to great illustration. Hey, very good, Chip. What do you think? It's pretty interesting how it all comes together. A little bit of a different view, Chip, coming up for the top of this thing, so we can see what happens with the promenade behind it and some of the landscaping work that goes involved in it. This will be a little open space here, like a tundra of some sort, and then the glass wrap behind the surface. So it's form, open, back to form again. But I think the thing that's unique about this interior space, no matter what we draw, vehicle design, product design, architecture, no matter what the subject matter is, it all comes down to understanding perspective. It's just interesting. It's a nice, clean form, very simple to work with, and I think, as I said yesterday, in yesterday's stream, the more you understand perspective, the more you and I don't understand it, don't misunderstand, I'm still really working at it. I mean, it's always a great challenge. What's the right view? What do you want to show? What do you want to eliminate? How do you want to flatter certain things? There's a lot of personality in it, but I think once you get there, it starts to tell a real story. So again, enough said. This is the final go around for today. I thought we'd kind of terminate this exercise in architecture by really illustrating this guy and getting a little bit of an overhead in here. So this is on just plain bond paper. I'm going to start attacking this sketch with a very take the tower office. You got it. And I'll be right next to you. I'll be in this little flying buttress over here, Shadow, so we can kind of communicate back and forth by the laser beam. That'll be cool. But what I thought I'd do is come back and just do a real fast, really gesturally sketch. Nothing final, just a lot of emotion in it to kind of capture the flavor of this architectural study by using marker, pencil, and maybe a little bit of pastel to end up with here. Let's just kind of work on some really simple surfaces here first. I'm in the Copic. Pardon me as I turn this thing a little bit. I pick up my light source here. I'm going to come in from this side. Light source coming in from right to left and start to stain this guy. Let's put in some action here. Let's tint this guy. Let's come in here a little bit. Put that down. Let's get this form to read a little bit in here. Come back in through here. That shape back in through there. I'm going to paint in some surfaces just to get it started and begin to see what happens with this form. Real quick dusting in. See a little bit of highlight. Get that little valley there to read where that highlight has come into this. Again, the light source is up on this side, so we have less of that dome. It's going to be very, very simple. It's going to look like that. Comes in and comes back over the top and animates itself down to that bone line there. Take that through. And again, one more passing through here. A little more tone. Let's get this shadow in here to really kind of pull back and get that direction going. And then right through here, just back to reflected light. Into this, across, and really push it. Let's just get the stains in first. Let it set a little bit. Now, notice how that's starting to come together there? What we're doing is really taking advantage of what light will do. Is bring a little activity over here as it moves away from light to dark. We'll stain it by doing the following. Technique-wise, rotate the pad, save that highlight right in there. Come right back up to the top of that form and just illustrate, very animated. Look how that light source begins to tell you what that shape is doing. It's simple, and it should be. When you work with markers, all they are wet pencils. Remember that, wet pencils. And if the more you animate your work with a marker, the stronger they're going to become. It just makes a huge difference. So let's do this. Let's come back and get this surface to work. I'm going to go from dark to light, working myself right back on the light source. So I'm going to come back down through here. Pardon me as I rotate this back just a bit. Here we go. I'm going to come in. And then let this surface go and animate it now. Reflect this back into it. Reflect that back into it. and just keep it nice and simple. Look how that shape just begins to just walk off the page. I hope. What do you think, gang? Making sense? One more pass. Again, into highlight, out of it, into shadow. Look at that second pass to have to really clarify that form. How simple that is. Really interesting, huh? Let's come back into this. Same thing. Over the top, dark, a little more cylindrical. Over the top, right back into light source. Man, as quick as that is, I've often said this too, and I think it's so important. When you work with multimedia, keep it, especially marker, be extremely quick with it. Extremely quick, because if you're not, it'll flood up in an instant, and all of a sudden you've lost the content here. So with this, with the shadow across where it tells you where that light source is coming from, let's put that aside for a second. Let's go down to a number 2 gray. Let's put a little more core in this. Come around just a little bit more tone. There it is. Into that highlight line, into the secondary shape coming off of this form here. And we'll take that right back into the light source. Notice every one of these strokes are coming right back into the light source. And what I mean by that is that's going right back to light, and there's just a little bit more tone to work with here. So let's do this. A little bit more, pardon me, as I rotate this guy. Let's give a little bit of core into here. That's that. Shadow. Let's come back up on top here. Let's get this little roof, this little valley in here to work. Shadow. Into core. And again, reflected light. Pardon me, reflecting the surfaces up on top. Back into that shape. Again, core, down to the shadows, into the upper, and one little pass here, one more time, real lightly. This is kind of gradate the color, and let it roll. Look at that, look at that. Is that fun or what? There it is, gang. Ooh, where am I here? Choose backup options, protect your pressures and document. Okay, I'll do that later. I'm gonna stop right there for a minute. What do you think, gang? So far making sense? Look how simple that becomes. Isn't that neat? We're just treating a really simple shape here and keeping it very functional, not plugging a lot in. Let's go back in through here now. Let's get this secondary shape in there. Let's get this guy behind the surface here. Let's drop that in. This is all building. Let's drop that in. Just painting it in. And I'll separate that as we go here. Let's go down. So I've changed the tint there just a little bit. For what it's worth, let's get this number 3 working here for us. Let me move around here. Sorry, guys. I'll pick up this, get the tempo right. Notice I started light, and I'm going right down to dark. I'm going to just build the values. Let's keep this thing nice and honest. Let's go to number 3 gray, and add a little bit more tone back in through here. Let's catch a little bit of shadow coming off of this guy. Put it in there. Shadow there. In there. Again, over to this top. Inside the core, and notice something now, animating through here. Now I take that same fine liner and get that highlight to come right down that form. More shadow. Reflecting that in there. That into that. And while I'm at it, let's this is an overhang here. Let's kind of tint that back. Let's kind of put a little bit of a brown in it. Notice how I kept that little bit of white in there to kind of honestly preserve the highlight that we're dealing with. Let's come back in through here. Right down that spine. Since it's out of the light source, we can take advantage of this and really tint this guy back, because it's away from the light source. Why am I leaving that little parabolic curve in there? That's reflected light. That little section right there becomes reflected light. And it keeps you from plugging it all up and filling it all in. Not necessary to. Let's get a little more animation in this guy. Inside the tower and across into the shadow. Now we're building this guy. This is the fun part about this whole creative process. You begin to build a surface, and let's just do this. Let's come back one more time. And lean that stroke pattern right back to light source. There it is. That basically will cover the tracks on that building. Look how we just kind of highlighted that with some very simple things here. Let's get some of the green space in here real quickly. Let's begin to separate some of these textures. I'm going to come back in here. This is all going to be promenade or open space back in here, so we'll put a little bit of this in. Now that starts to separate. That's an open avenue back there. Into this. Maybe a little wider brush stroke here, and we'll get this inked in nicely here. That's better. A little lawn space here. The counterpoint of all the hard edges. Just very quickly, tinning it in. It's interesting too what happens when you do things like this, how these little details begin to isolate and describe the overall form of the building as well. So they really help to kind of masquerade where we're going with this thing to keep it nice and honest. So let's do this. Come back, and this is all going to be lawn space, and we're just laying in that first tint in here. We're going to adjust that. Won't be as bright. That's where that is. This will come back, and let's cast a shadow off of that into that shape there. That's kind of neat. That kind of gives a little more impact in it. Let's get this form to read. Pardon me as I turn the sketch around there, guys. Into lawn space. First pass. Just ink it in. And we'll do some little adjustment with pastel to kind of take the real harshness off of that bright green. This is just the first pass in. It's almost like doing a watercolor. You lay down the light surfaces first and slowly build the values up. And I think that's most critical when you're working with architecture. Now overhang, a little bit of shadow there. Into this. And out of that. And then just the last bit of just lawn space that comes outside the architectural piece itself that separates it. There it is right there. Pardon me as I turn this around a little bit. Get the stroke pattern to work and not flood it up too much. So there's another blush. You're just getting the surfaces to break down just a little bit here. Now, while I'm at it, let's come back in and put the light surfaces in first for all the softscapes. Just brushing it in. And there. Again through here. One more passing through here. Now let's do this. Let's get this. We're going to switch gears again. We get the shadow to work in here, a little darker green. Again through here, cast a shadow of this form. Always consistent about where my light source is. Into that. And again, and through here, pardon me as I rotate this back again, pardon me. Into shadow and overhang. Back out of it again. And into this form, and let's go from this corner and reverse it. Let's go from dark to light, just like we did in the actual building. Dark to light. Again, dark to light. Let's stain this down a little bit further. Won't hurt us. We'll come back and modify that as we go. And the intent of this stream today is to really focus in on lucidity and to not be fearful of laying down value or tones first. Because we're going to come back and we're going to feather them and adjust them and make them really sing. And let's put more tone in this guy. I'm just going to start picking up all the information here at once. Not all of it, but just when I've got the materials up, we'll just kind of work through it. Put the shadows in there, shadow and the light source, shadow, shadow and the light source, shadow. And again, just stain this down. A little more impact. Again, over here, I'm gonna let that sit for a little bit. I'm gonna let that kind of stain in a little bit. Look how that all of a sudden it's starting to really give this thing an almost glass grows. A little more tone in this. Again, take that same thing and just work it right back to light source, and just get really animated with it as it comes out of the bend there. There it is. So there we are. And now let's go in there. Next thing, we're going to add a little bit of glass surface. Let's get this texture stuff to work here now. Let's start putting a little bit of glass in there. Now this is that. That goes there. This comes along here inside that little ribbon. Does that. One step at a time here, folks. We're just going to slowly begin to build this shape off the form here. Like as it dries. Yeah, it's really cool. So the color changes over the time. Yes, it does. When you lay it down, shadow, the first initial blush, it's laying down a marker will go down extremely solid. Then as it dries, it'll kind of just saturate itself and lighten up a little bit. But we're not. This is the base we're working with here now. We're just laying in the first layer. You lay that down, then you come back in and begin to finesse it as you go here, and so what I mean in a minute by finessing it. When there's an entryway, there's glass up on top. Let's put a little bit of that reflective quality back in that aluminum or that upper, that canopy. Just a tint more of that, and it helps us. Glass in through here, around the corner, right down the ground line. Then again over inside. One more pass. A little bit more of a pass in through here, deepen a little bit. And again, this really a lot of shadow back in through here. And again, a glass solar panel series here, and reflect that back just a bit. Now let's take this guy and put a little bit of shadow in through here now. Let's get this overhang. Now back, I'm going to switch gears to go to pencil. Watch what happens here when you start to define these forms. Is a good example of what begins to happen when you start to draw back in. We're going to need a helipad. Oh yeah, that's right. That can be back in through here. That's cool. Look what happens when you draw back in. Now put a little shadow in the overhang here. And begin to really enunciate or illustrate what these shapes are doing. Now into the verticals. Draw back in. Took a little bit of a reprieve from the actual marker itself, but just going back in and detailing some of the work that was being done, or it should be being done, or is being done with the marker. There's the shadow in the overhang of the form itself. There's a shadow in the overhang of the form itself. Just bring it in here and just illustrate the daylight and then catch a little bit of that reflection inside that piece there. Again, into the mullions in the upper. And all of a sudden, that thing started to come out off the page. Hopefully, is this making sense, gang? Yeah, Chip, all right. We better get a helipad in there. You're right. There it is. Let's put a little bit of glass. Oh, I missed a little bit of glass back on this side here. Let's get this in here. Just enough to sneak that in there. Let's get the shadows to work on that guy just a bit. Detail, detail. Shadowing through here. Since our light source is coming in from the right hand side, we're going to get more impact here. And as it walks across, it's going to minimize. And again through here, here's the corner. That's all shadow. So we're going to knock that right out and put it right in. Look at that thing come together. Is this making sense, gang? Help me out. So far, so good. Yeah, it's fun. I mean, it's just really interesting. Put it all together. Now let's do this just for what it's worth. I want to shift gears here just for a second. I'm going to come back and add. No, I don't want to do that. Let me get a pencil here, guys. Sorry about that. Just going to grab one real quickly. Look what happens here. A little more shadow. Now I brought that in because I want to add a little bit more tiling in through here. Let's kind of bring this around here. Bit of a base. And again, same thing in through here. Detail, detail, detail. Same thing here, a little bit more detail on that little solar panel series across the top of this guy. light source. Now we're slowing down to get a little bit more of the character. Look at that thing starting to just come off the page. Hopefully it's just helping, gang. Looking, this is a lot of fun. So let's do this. Let me sharpen this stick a little bit here. Let's come back in and add a little more detail in this entryway. Down the ground. Let's get a little bit of shadowing through here. Into this edge. And let's get that same detail in the actual structure here of the building itself. Let's just put that little highlight right through there. Let's get these verticals to work. 1, 2, the mullions in the glass. Taking this surface right back. Now we'll split it. And then divide it again. Put more interest in some of the glass panels so it's not so static. And while we've got it, let's do this. Let's get a little bit of marker action here. Let's put this thing in shadow. Right, a little bit of marker. So we'll let that kind of tune a little bit there. There she is. That takes care of that. Little by little, it's starting to come off the page just a little bit. All of a sudden, it's just bouncing. And I think that's the, hi Brad, how are you? Good to see you. Late as usual. No, you're not late. Good to have you on board here. We're doing either a Shadow Lounge Scotch Cafe or some superhero headquarters. Superhero headquarters sounds good to me. That'd be great. Let's do this, guys. Let me come back in here and just want to do a little drawing definition here. We're going to change some tempo. Let's do this. We'll come back in there. A little reflecting pool at this end. A bit of shadow. Draw back into it again. More drawing definition in here. A little bit more tenacious in terms of getting these trees to work a little bit here. Let's get this softscape in. Back to pencil, working with the shadows. Again, remember my light source is coming in from the right-hand side, so I'm keeping it nice and nice. Interesting concept. Hey, Brett, thank you very much. What's drawing definition? Drawing definition, Brett, is to take advantage of, for example, you've got a loose form, for example. There's no definition to it. That means highlighting it or else giving it some sort of an address. What is it? What's its nature? Is it hard? Is it soft? Does it have texture to it? So you're defining what the shapes are doing. I'm going back into defining some of these forms now. For example, I'm drawing definition in some of the trees. So we get more shadow and more definition in these guys and make it a little bit more believable. Same thing down below. Shadow side. Into the light source again from over here. Shadow below. Up on top, and let it go to light source. All of a sudden, it's a little more drawing, a little more impact in the definition. So, so giving stuff from form and shape, absolutely. It's defining what you begin to see. So that's exactly correct, Brad. Good deal. Well, it's good to have you on board. We missed you the last couple of sessions here. Hope this is helpful to you. We're going through a series of exercises here where the first thing we did on Tuesday was do some ballpoint sketches on architecture. Yesterday I spent some time going through some variations on theme, which I'll show you in the wrap-up here at the end of the show, and the progress today, and put a little bit more into this. There's ground, pardon me as I just kind of define something here. And back into this guy, a little more drawing definition. And around the surface itself, just a little bit more of some soft spots around here, just kind of give it some definition. Now let's come back in through here. Notice we went from light source to dark. So now I'm going to take this guy and start casting some shadows in here. And let that fade. Same thing through the water. And then into the overhang. That helps me to define that. And again here, dark, back to light, dark, back to light. Again, another water feature up front here, so we'll lay that in nicely. Some fountains, a little bit of definition there. Now I'll come back in and just begin again to define it just a little bit. Ha, thanks. You mean like turning a circle into a sphere? Yes, you got it. That would do it. That's one of the ways to define certain things. Now let's come back in and just put a little bit of shape in this guy. Let's get this in place here. Let's get this backside stuff in place. Same process again. Lay that thing down first and come back in. Get the shadows to work back here in the foliage. In the ground, again shadow, and then in the shadow. And let's adopt that silo, same thing. Let's get that shadow, just a shadow come off that silo, just across that lawn space behind the surface here. So that's gonna have a little bit of shadow behind it there. That tells a story right there. A little darker. Into light. Again, back in through here. So put a touch more shadow coming into this thing. And again, across the hair. And put a little bit of that same grass color back inside the glass itself. Now, that just about takes care of the building itself. And all of a sudden, we've kept a very simple set of operations here with the building, the detail behind it, some of the real slope lines coming in behind all that. What do you think, gang? So far, so good? You know, you could call us a soccer team and no one argue. Well, you could in a way, but I don't know if that would be even feasible. Let's kind of put some softscape in here now. Let's come back into this. A bit of definition here. Going back to marker, back and forth with a little bit of marker, a little bit of pencil. Just changing the variation on theme here just a bit. Oop, let's go back into this, do this. Let's get this little tile pattern change here. Shadow and the light. And a little bit of that same soil down into here, a little bit of that little island stone piece here. Let's take that lighter marker now and work right around this whole surround here. Look how quickly I put that little promenade in place there. So it does not become, yay. Yeah, what do you think, guys? Coming along all right? Super. Let's go back in just a couple more passes here with a little more tone in this thing. Shadow. I'll start to build the surfaces here just a bit. into the shadow here, into the reservoir, across the form. All right, now the fun part. Ready? Little vehicle dynamics here. Little panel definition on the building. All of a sudden, there's a little more character to it. So it's not just a great big huge plane here. Let's see. Hi, Brett. Yeah, it's awesome. I'm gonna head off to bed. Y'all have a nice day. You too. Take care. Hi, Brett. Good to have you on board again. Thank you, sir, for joining us in here for a few moments. Always good to have you on board. Let's come back in here for a minute. Just put a little more definition in this guy. I'm gonna start to spend a little more time in the drawing now to kind of define some shapes here and really work with this guy. Go from thick to thin. More shadow in through here. Just kind of a little bit bolder with that edge. Yeah, that corner. That's better. Run to that. Into that. And into that. So there's a pretty good overview of what that form is starting to look like here. So what do you think, guys? Coming along all right? A little bit of scale, a little bit of perspective to it, some fountains. I mean, the whole thing's come together, I think. Well, dang, that is some nice definition. There we go. Yeah, just bring it on now. Let's spend a little bit of time through. I'm going to switch gears. I don't want to use too much here ink because the ink will run. I'll start putting a little bit more specific definition in this thing. Again, a little bit more drawing definition. Some hardscape in here, coming out of the entryway. A little more change of pace here. Let's get that water feature to work a little bit for us here. A little more animation than some of the surface down below. A little more of the fountain detail. Draw back in. Big, huge thing about putting all that makes such a huge difference. Let's put a little more shadow here. Sorry, guys. A little more shadow in this building, this overhang. Does that, then it comes out, and just a little more highlight and shadow. Water surface. Again, water surface. Let's get this down. I mean, look at that. Hopefully has some real simple, clean presence to it. What do you think, folks? I just really need your help here. So it's coming along nicely. Working okay? it's a culmination of what we've been doing for the last two streams and just putting together a real good, strong story, pardon me, on what we're looking at in terms of architectural definition. It doesn't take an awful lot. It just really gets into some really good stuff here in terms of making sure that we've got the right elements. Marker, pencil, draw, a little bit of combination of everything. Let's kind of put more foliage back in through here. Let's finish this out a little bit. Just enough to kind of give it a little more presence to it. Let's take a little bit of that lighter surface, which is here, I think, into it. Get that little piece to work. Let's kind of take this, let's take this section out, just a little more definite. That's better. More definition in that softscape. There we are, or that hardscape. There it is. It opens it up quite a bit. Now let's go back in and get some definition here. There, to there, to there. And again, that portion and that portion. A bit of curving. Pardon me as I just turn this around a little bit. More drawing definition. Notice how that a little bit more of the drawing goes back into this thing. It really makes a huge difference. Let's go back and get this kind of tuned in now. A little bit more shadow underneath that brow. Again, underneath here. Just a bit, just a touch of definition here and there. And there you go, guys. We're almost there. What do you think? Pretty interesting. The details you add are awesome. Well, I think the detailing makes a difference, Chip. You go back in and have a basic surface, but as I said, it's a very large plane. I can see this almost been like a aluminum structure of some sort, or carbon fiber, silver carbon. And then you begin to add definition to it and begin to take the time to really slow it all down. Notice how we start with the big picture. That's one of the nice things about doing really interesting things in architecture. Our vehicle design, any form of design, pardon me, I get this guy organized back in through here. Any form of design. I always like to think in terms of, from my teaching side of it, what I've learned over the years is always start with the big picture first. Get the large surfaces in. Never go into a situation where you detail first and then go over the big picture. Get the large surfaces out of the way first. Then come back in and detail it. Just slow it all down. So it starts quickly, then the tempo changes. It goes from extremely quick right down as a very subtle, simple process of putting it all together so it stays rhythmic and it doesn't become static. So the overview here, I think that the nice thing about this sketch, not this sketch is not great, but the nice thing about this sketch is it embodies a very solid tool about execution from start to finish. From concept to completion, everything is premeditated. You think your way through the process. You're always 7 steps ahead. If you're not that 7 steps ahead, all of a sudden you get into real trouble because, boy, it can come back to really hit you in a hurry. So I'm going to do a little thing here. Let's kind of switch gears just for a second and put some finishing touches on this guy, and let's see if we can kind of put it together for you here. So thanks for your patience here, gang. Let's see what we can do with this. I get a little bit of this going here, and we'll come back in with a little bit of some sky. A little bit of purple, so we can kind of see what that's going to do, and wrap it all up here with a nice little, again, one additional form here, which is great to work with. Let's start with this. We'll come back in here first and just start putting some washes in. Just very simple. Just take it away from being so plain, keeping it subtle, but at the same time, adding some dimension to it. And not worrying about, now let's model in some of this surface here to kind of tone that back just a bit. Gray it off just a touch. And then through here, not as vibrant, just slow it all down a little bit. Same back in through here, just to take the bite off of that intensity. Just slow it back just a little bit here. Very nice. Got that all set up. Now let's go a little deeper with that green. Not too much, but enough to just kind of give it a little more presence to it. Let's do this. Let's see what happens here. Let's take now a great drawing tool. Let's get that eraser out. Put that in place. Guide the viewer back in. Let's see what that does. We're keeping it real subtle. I don't want to take it away from the building too much. So if you're Chip, if you're still there, does that work? What do you think, Chief? The detail. It's coming along all right? Very cool. We can come back and add a little bit of this. It doesn't hurt your case at all. Come back and add a little bit of this. And just let that blend in. And again, in here, same thing. Let that blend in by using your hands. And all of a sudden, there she is. Eraser. Saves it. Comes back to normal. And again, what we lost, we'll pick that up again. We'll pick that up. We'll pick a little of that up. And come right through an eraser strike. And there you are. Let's hope that kind of settles it down a little bit. What do you think, Chip? Is it making sense? There you go. Let's go back into this. Now we got the ground plane pretty well established. Let's just kind of set this up just a bit more. Let's clean this up just a touch. I want to make sure we're doing some really neat stuff here. Let's do this, and then this, just to kind of take the curse off of it. That just kind of leaves me a little bit, a little more lawn space to deal with, where the driveways are and the roadway is. Let's take that same color so we can get a little bit more criminal with this thing in through here, the more green type. Just to take some of the intensity off of this. There you are. It's a little better. Direct application. So that's that. Then we'll just borrow a sheet of paper here for a second. Pardon me here, guys, I make a mess. We'll borrow this same sheet of paper. And we're going to look at this. A little sky tone in here. Then we should be all set to go. Borrow this guy. Let me flag this back just a bit here. And that frames it in just a touch. Let's clean it up a little bit here. Pardon my hands. That's that. Into that. And again, working with that light source. And hopefully, gentlemen, there we are. There is hopefully the final product here, gang. It didn't take too much time here. I just know the battle plan was already set, so to speak, and we had a pretty good idea of where we wanted to go with this thing. And I think when it's all said and done, what do you think, guys? Interesting? Certainly right. Hey, JJ2078, welcome aboard. Thanks for joining us here. We're just kind of wrapping up this little session here with some architectural stuff. This is a culmination, JJ, of just what we've been doing for the last 3 days or so, working with some of these surfaces we've been dealing with. We started on Tuesday with some conceptual sketches, some ballpoint pen stuff. And then we went back in and, for example, yesterday's stream was taking those ballpoint pens, taking one direction from it and beginning to put it all together in terms of maybe refining some of the shapes. And then went through a review before I started the program today, and I'll go back into for your benefit here. Hey, thanks, Shadow. Good to have you on board. Back in again. So this is a combination of, I'll explain in a moment here when you see some of the sketches. Most of these sketches we did yesterday from a normal eye level, and you can see some of the forms here, but it's much more dramatic. but we couldn't see the rest of the facility. So I thought, well, let's at the final sketch, let's get above this thing and see what happens behind the silo and the actual wing form, or the ribbon itself. And then this little atrium behind it, it kind of supports the form itself, and adding some softscape. It gave us more of a view of what this form is doing. So these shapes are really leaning back, and then this pops on top of this. It's all butterflies back. It's very ribbon-like. So that's what we're looking for here. It was really interesting set of circumstances to deal with. So let me do this for real quickly, and we'll go back through a little review and wrap it up, call it a day. So I'm guilty party. There it is. There's the culmination right there. Let's walk you back through here just for a second. This is for JJ's benefit. I don't know if you joined us yesterday or not. Yeah, you're right, Shadow. What amazing, what perspective can do, and I think more so, as we've said from the very beginning, even on Tuesday when we started, it's the genesis of everything. I mean, all these sketches that we're about to show you here are products of getting into that whole concept of understanding what perspective does. So let me start here. We started yesterday. We took the basic theme and said, okay, we've got the form down. Now let's go with some things here. What do we do with the shape? Do we flatten it a little bit? Do we stretch it? Do we kind of change the dome a little bit? So these sketches are a review for you, JJ, so you know where we came from regarding today's final sketch. These are variations on theme. These are real fast, maybe 5 or 10 minute sketches in Prismacolor pencil on bond paper, just exploring what ifs about, do we lean it more? Do we get a little bit of a break in this thing? Yeah, that's right. They're very quick sketches. I don't spend a lot of time on these guys. I've always been a firm believer, if you lay down an idea and massage it too much, you begin to lose it. And I think the quicker you go, the more decision making is help assisted, and you're not confusing yourself with, geez, did I do the right thing? Being right is not the right thing to worry about. Being very quick and assertive is. And that's what a good concept sketch should do. It's an idea. So these ideas were generated from that ballpoint pen sketch we did on series we did on Tuesday. And then at the first pass, then we went to that. We kind of turned it around a little bit and looked at how it might look from the other end. And we kind of pulled the east end out, just swung it a little bit to look at what might happen in this far side plane. And then we rotated again and just turned the whole thing around. Went with the larger ribbon on the west side, and went to that very small ribbon on the west side. And this is the north elevation here, obviously. So that was the second pass of sketches we did, just to kind of look. Are we looking for form? What kind of refinements are we going to get? What are the details going to look like here? Then the last one we did yesterday in yesterday's program was this. We kind of just settled in on the fact that let's kind of open this thing up. Let's push it all back a little bit so we can see more of the lean and take advantage of more of an atrium and maybe a butterfly form on top of the left-hand bank. As we went through the whole process, and again with the same atrium area entry, and we added a fountain and this little seating area, and then maybe dropping down the sides of the cylinder. But we didn't see in any one of these sketches what was happening behind the shape itself. So what I decided to do for today was to go, let's get up on top of this thing and let's do this. Put this two together. I don't know if this will work or not. We kind of can bring this up just a touch. There we are. There's the actual form itself, not necessarily that same atrium piece, but all of this activity back here is happening behind this shape. We had a little bit more scallop up on top. We still kept this lean, but actually popped that shape up, and then there behind that would be the same form. So it'll come up behind that. You won't see it in this view. And notice how I changed the orientation as well, because if you put that lean in through here, that whole shape would look like it was in this view, this overhead. Hey, Corian, how are you, man? Good to have you on board. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you taking the time to be with us. Hey, Chip7, how you doing, Chips? Thank you very much. So going back to the conversation, the reason we kind of pulled back, hey, Balisic, how are you? Just subscribed. Hey, good to have you on board, Balisic. Man, cool stuff. So here we are. Zandola, just wow, unbelievable. Thank you, Zandola. It's good to have you on board. Thank you, Shadow. Cool. Jeez, Game of Columbus just subscribed. Wow. Interesting. Very cool. Interesting. Super, super, super. So here we are, and culminating the whole thing, notice that the change of pace, all the sketches that we did initially on Tuesday and again yesterday and today, they had this very dramatic lean to it, and everything kind of pointed in the other direction. Let me show another sketch here. What I mean by that is everything was moving more to the left-hand side, or part of the right-hand side on lean. In this view, it just seemed more sensible to kind of change the orientation. Still had the same lean to it, but we changed the orientation instead of being so, let me get this out of the way, thank you. instead of being so forward with this thing, we want to pull that plane back, and then let maybe the upper plane lean a bit more. And that's the decision I made to kind of balance out the perspective, because it really interesting how it all began to come together and made it so much more manageable. And I think the nice thing about that is, as well, is behind this shape, this carries on and picks up the same echo behind it. You don't see it in this view, but we haven't compromised or sacrificed too many of the same situations for what we're working with here. What we are doing is refining the ballpoint pen sketches. And if you don't mind, let me do this. Thank you for your patience. Just for what it's worth, in review here, you saw day 2. This is day 1. This is where we started. Ballpoint pen sketches, really quick. Just laying down ideas and so forth, and just seeing what happens with this whole process here. So, again, the ribbon, this very ribbon organic form, and being very sheer in the end cap. Notice that the lean is still there. Then I went to a second elevation showing what can happen. And the reason I did this sketch was to illustrate the fact that once you have an elevation down, you can use that elevation and begin to pull things forward or rearward and create a perspective out of that. And in this case, a one-point perspective going back to the drive lines behind the building itself. So these are the first day sketches. We started the program. The title of the first program we did was very simple, and it was called Architectural Concept Sketch, a rapid sketch, just laying down ideas. So there's one. Then we went to this, looking at like a metroplex with an outbuilding and a park system of some sort to deal with it. And again, lifting the eye level up so we get more of a drama here. Large building, plaza space, green space around this. This is more of a metroplex. Then back again to a little geometric study where we offset some of the planes, and just again, real fast ballpoint pen sketches, looking at themes and variations in architecture. And then the last one we did was this on Tuesday of this week, was going through this process here. Again, my leading edge is right here, and we just kind of pull back in perspective. And that was another variation on theme, looking at surfaces. This is an elevation of a very Teutonic aesthetic, almost stealth-like building. Then I went from that into a little bit of perspective study using the same set of plans. It's just not the same building, but the same basic principle. And again, from all that, you saw the second pass, and this is the culmination of that building study. So it's a little more of an overhead on it, and to finish up the sketch itself. So I think we made some real progress here. I think the real message we wanted to get across here to the gang was how vital it is. Number one, and wrapping it all up, the first lesson learned in any given situation to make it really hum is very simply this: take advantage of understanding how perspective functions. I was going back to Sid Mead's comment, and it's over the years, it's becoming more and more of a roaring success. You do not do anything without you cannot teach what you don't understand. And I'm still learning about it. I'm still trying to figure it all out. But I do believe with all my heart that perspective is the genesis of illustration. That's where it all starts. If you understand perspective, you can cheat like mad. I don't mean it to be negative at all, but you can cheat like mad to really do a great job of flattening the form, making more of an impact out of it. Most of these sketches are doing that. I don't know. Have you seen high school teachers? Yes, I have. I try to put together a program for that very reason, JJ, and it's a long story. I won't take the time to do that now. That's why my website is so active. I did that very purpose for high school systems and getting some of the animation and perspective down and teaching young people to aspire to their dreams at a very young age. It was a very different, very unusual set of circumstances that came about as a result of that. But it's still active. I'm still working with the website. We're getting great response where people are looking at it now and are starting to buy into it. So we're going to build on as we go. In fact, while you brought that up, at the end of the month, hopefully the first part of March, I'm going to start doing a second intermediate series on product. That's why these exercises now are so critical. On my website, I'll start taking architecture, doing a series of lessons: concept, refinement, completion. Just going through the whole process of what scale does, proportion, color, and so forth. So it's all going to be built upon that. So anyway, I'm sorry for rambling here, folks, but this is a culmination sketch, getting up over the top of it so we can see the promenade behind it, some of the plaza space inside that green space and so forth, and then seeing what the overall site plan looks like and give it some sense of scale. So all that to say, this has been a lot of fun. I think I'm going to do more of these. Maybe next week we'll do another 3-part series, maybe on interior space, and do another series of the real fast ballpoint pen sketches in interior space and explain how that all comes together, and then pick one and refine it and do a final study on it. and then into product and transportation and so forth, and then anything else that comes along. And I really appreciate this too. I mean this with all my heart, sincerely. If you have something you want me to deal with, or I can discuss with you, if you're having drawing issues or whatever takes place, I'm not going to have all the answers. But if I can help you, I'd be more than happy to do that. So let me know if anything you have to work with or would like to see done. Please drop me a line at my email address at jim@drcontrast.com. JJ especially. If you have anything you want to look at, please feel free to contact me. You can also reach me, for example, through my Discord, active there as well. And last but not least, boy, if I've done something right here today, I said something right today, please tell me. If I've done something wrong, again, please tell me. Go to my website and let me know, hey, you said this or did that. I want to correct I don't want to be the author of confusion. I want to be the author of clarity. And when you tune in to watch us work here, I really want to be a helpmate to you. So the more you work with me in terms of what you want to have done or what you'd like to see done, the more pleasant it's going to become for me. I want it to be really productive for everybody tuning in. So to all of you who are tuning in or are currently tuning in, really thank you for your time. It's been really invaluable. Neat stuff. So good stuff. Chip, hey, thanks very much, Chip. Have a great day. Take care of yourself. We'll see you next Tuesday at same time, 2:30 start, and we'll go into some other little discipline here. And again, if you have any drawing situations or lessons you want to learn, for example, from my website, please visit my website, my entry-level drawing process, or 9 lessons. It's called Dr. Contrast and the Dream Labs. I can be reached at drcontrast.com. And also, please feel free to go back in and check that out. And last but not least, before we leave today, thank you so much for your time, gang. It's always good to have you on board. And thank you so for those of you that subscribed and joined forces. Cannot thank you enough. It means an awful lot to me. Thank you so much for doing so. And I'll definitely make it worth your while. Last but not least, I want to take this moment to state the most important part of the entire stream. This is really, I end every program with this very simple thought. Because I sincerely mean it with all my heart. It really, really rings true. Never ever forget to remember to dare to be great, because you are. Thanks very much, gang. All the very best, and take care of yourself, and we'll see you next Tuesday at 2:30. Thank you. All the best.